Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode number 19 of Pantry to Plate. My name is Kristen Elliott, one of the dietitians here at the food bank, and we're coming to you live from the Kaiser Permanente Learning Kitchen. Welcome, another Tuesday, another episode, but today for me is special because I have some really important news to share about what we have in the warehouse. For the first time, we have been able to source herbs and spices that our pantries can choose and distribute to our community. So today's episode is going to be all about how to make spice blends with the options that we will have available. So first, I want to show you what it will look like. So this is what one package of spices will look like in the warehouse. So this is Badia brand, which is common. You can find this in a Walmart or a Kroger grocery store. And each of the seasoning packets are going to come in a little resealable pouch between a ½ ounce and 1/2 ounce of spices. So we have 10 different spices available in the warehouse. So I'm just so excited about this. All of the spice blends I'm going to talk about today are from the list of options that we have. So let me make sure I get my list correctly. So we have dried basil, bay leaves, cinnamon, cumin, curry powder, which is this, onion powder, garlic powder, oregano, paprika, and ground ginger. So I worked with Elle on our sourcing team to come up with this list of spices that are sort of some foundational flavors that you can use to make a lot of different dishes. And they're also really common. So let's get started. Be on the lookout on eHarvest for spices. Okay. So I'm going to show you 4 different spice blends that you can make using the options that we have available. So you're not limited to these, and these are really basic. So you can take the packets that you get from us and you can use them more than one time because they are small packages. But honestly, if you were to look at one of the little seasoning packages from Kroger, this one in particular is like 1.6 ounces. So they're not too much smaller than what you might find at the grocery store. The best part is that the packet's resealable. So first off, I want to show you how you can make a curry powder seasoning. So like I said, this is a very basic seasoning. And if you were to look at some specific types of curry, because there are so many regional varieties of curry, the flavor profiles might be different, but this is going to give you a nice, basic, simple curry recipe. So first, we're going to start off with some curry powder, and we're going to use 1 tablespoon of curry powder. Actually, did I measure exactly 1 tablespoon? I did. How funny is that? I did not do that on purpose. So we've got 1 tablespoon of curry powder. We've got 2 teaspoons of ground ginger. And 1 teaspoon of garlic. Which one's garlic? Here we go. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And last but not least, 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. 1, 2. Now, if you like spicy food, you can add some ground red peppers or red pepper flakes, or you can leave that off to the side and let that be something each person can add if they would like their food to be spicy. So this is your nice, simple curry powder blend. It smells so good. Okay, so you see I'm using a airtight container. This is a great idea for storing your spice blends. This is enough for one recipe, but you can very easily double this or triple this and keep it for when you need it. So that is our curry powder. Next, I'm going to show you an all-purpose seasoning that you can use on anything. Think of this as like a Lowry seasoning salt substitute or something like that. So you can use this on anything. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to use some paprika. So my paprika here today is actually smoked because that's the one that I have. But the one that we will have in the warehouse is regular paprika. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons of paprika. Okay. We've got 2 tablespoons of onion. I don't know why this is confusing. We got our onion here. I didn't measure this, but this is perfect. There's our 2 tablespoons of onion. We've got 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. And then last but not least, you have some options. So you can use 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, which is a blend of a bunch of different green herbs that are dried. But based on what we have in the warehouse, I'm going to use basil and oregano. So you can do 1 teaspoon each of basil and oregano. So this is the oregano, and this is the basil. There we go. I'm going to close it up, give it a good shake, and this is our all-purpose seasoning. So like I said, put this on anything. It does give you a really good, like Lowry seasoning kind of look. We're not sponsored by Lowry's. I'm just using that as an example. All-purpose seasoning. Okay, this next one is the garlic and herb seasoning. So this one is going to be a bulk version of one of these spices. So that means that you don't need to use all of this for one recipe. It means you take what you need and then keep the rest of it stored away for later. And the beauty of this is that I haven't added any salt to any of these seasonings, so you can use as much as you want to and add salt for flavor after the fact. So for this garlic herb blend, I'm going to use 1/4 cup of garlic. Let's see if this is enough. 1/4 cup of garlic, just about. A little bit more there. So equal parts garlic, onion, and then your dried green herbs. So that is an easy way to think about how much you might need and want to use at a time. So equal parts. 1/4 cup of garlic, 1/4 cup of onion powder, and last but not least is our Italian seasoning and our basil. So I'm just going to split this in half in our 1/4 cup. It's not going to be exact. Okay, there's oregano. And then here's my basil. Yeah, use all that up. Perfect. All right, that is the garlic herb. I foresee this being really tasty on just some chicken. Like, add this to your meats as you get ready to prepare them. Garlic herb deliciousness. That smells so good. One thing I want to add here, since I'm working with the garlic and the onion powder, they're so fine that they can very easily be susceptible to moisture. So you might be able to see that some of it is actually stuck to the inside of this bowl, and it's only been sitting out in the room for maybe 30 minutes. So that's just based on the moisture that came from the room. So if you have just this combo, this could potentially become solid. So one thing that you can do to avoid that is to add some rice to your seasoning. If you've ever been to a restaurant and seen like the salt shaker have some rice in it, it's exactly for this purpose. It's just to absorb any moisture that gets into it and to keep from messing up and turning your seasoning into solid. So I just added just some rice. I didn't measure it. And then just going to mix it in there. So you're going to store it like this. And that way it won't become solid from moisture. So you're probably thinking, Okay, Kristen, I want to use this seasoning. How do I get the rice out of it? So one thing that you can do is you can use a fine mesh strainer. This is a really great kitchen gadget to have because it has such a small hole. You can strain anything. Like if you wanted to, I recommend if you rinse your white rice before you cook it, this is a great option because the holes are so small. So many options with the fine mesh strainer. But what you can do with it also is to use it to get the rice out of your seasoning. So you just like get whatever you need and put it in your little strainer, and then you can get your rice out just like so. So I got my rice in the strainer, and there's my seasoning, no rice. So that's just a really easy way to keep your seasoning blends from turning hard from moisture and to get the rice out. Okay, so the last seasoning blend that I want to show you is a taco or chili seasoning. So the flavor profile for these two dishes are very similar. So I just like to have one seasoning, and I'm going to use it for taco or for chili. So for this seasoning, we are going to use some paprika or chili powder. So we don't have chili powder in our list in our warehouse, but we do have paprika. So you can very easily substitute paprika for chili because it comes from the same variety of peppers. That's all chili powder and paprika is. It's just like dried peppers. So you can easily substitute the two for each other. So I'm going to be doing 1 tablespoon. Let me get this plastic guy off. 1 tablespoon of the paprika. There we go. Get the rest of that one. And then we're going to do 1 tablespoon of cumin. Got my cumin. What else we have? We've got a teaspoon of garlic. I didn't put enough in my little bowls. Teaspoon of garlic and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. One thing that you may not realize it comes in your taco seasoning packet is oregano. So we're going to add about half a teaspoon of our dried oregano. I'm a really big fan of going to the international section of the grocery store and looking at the spices there. Oftentimes they're a lot cheaper, and you might find brands like Badia that I showed you, which is what we will have. I'm a huge fan of Mexican oregano. It's just special. It smells better and it tastes really strong. So if you ever see that, that's a good option. Okay, this is our taco and our chili seasoning. No salt added to it. Go. Use that for both taco and for chili seasoning. Last but not least, to use the ginger and the garlic that we will have, I wanted to show you how to make a teriyaki sauce. Teriyaki is literally soy sauce, garlic, and ginger. And then if you want to make it a thicker sauce, you'll add some cornstarch. You will also add a little bit of sugar in there. So I'm using low sodium soy sauce. This is a really great option for paying attention to your salt intake. Highly recommend the low sodium. If you don't have that, you can use equal parts soy sauce and water to meet what your recipe requires. So for example, this recipe is a 1/4 cup of soy sauce. If you had full salt soy sauce, you would just do 2 tablespoons of soy and 2 tablespoons of water to reduce the salt. So here we go. Got my 1/4 cup of soy sauce. A 1/4 cup of soy sauce is a good amount for about 4 servings. So that can help you decide how much you will need based on how many people you're serving. So we got our soy sauce here, and then we've got our garlic and our ginger. So we're gonna do we're going to do equal parts garlic and ginger. So I'm going to do 1 teaspoon each. So this is the ginger. It smells so good and so spicy. And then here's the garlic. You would also add about a tablespoon of sugar here because teriyaki is a little bit sweet. You can also use pineapple juice instead of sugar. So if you need more volume to your sauce, like for instance, if you're going to marinate some meat in this sauce, it's a good idea to use something like pineapple juice to add more liquid instead of adding more soy sauce. Because you don't really want to add water to your marinade because that's going to dilute the flavor, especially if you're already starting with a low sodium soy sauce. So this is my teriyaki. Garlic and ginger and low sodium soy sauce. So you can use this as it is, or you can add some cornstarch to it, which will help it to thicken up. So if you're making a marinade, I would not add the cornstarch in the beginning. What I would do is take your cornstarch and mix it with a little bit of water. That's very important for cornstarch. So you're going to do equal parts water and cornstarch. So I'm going to do a teaspoon of cornstarch here. And I'm going to add a little bit of water, just 1 teaspoon. Okay, so when you do this, you're going to mix it together, and that cornstarch is just going to completely dissolve into the water, and then you get this, we call this a slurry. So it is very important that you use cold water or your marinade is not warm. If you want to add cornstarch to a warm liquid, you have to put it in cold first. You have to have this liquid or you're going to get little chunks of cornstarch and it's not going to thicken anything. So important to mix it with water or mix it into a cold or room temperature sauce. So this is going to just thicken up once it hits the heat. That is our teriyaki sauce. One of my favorite things to make. You can use fresh garlic and fresh ginger. I like to use a very small grater to grate the garlic and the ginger into the sauce if you're making it with fresh. But the flavor is just as good if you're using a ground garlic and a ground ginger. It's also very convenient and saves you some time. So do it however you want to and have access, but use that ground ginger and garlic from the warehouse to make a yummy teriyaki sauce. Okay, I think I covered everything pretty quickly. So I want to make sure that you remember if you're going to make your seasonings and store them, you want to put them in an airtight container. You also want to make sure that you don't store them near heat, because if you store them near heat, they can, the flavor will sort of like die a little bit faster. Also, there's potential for moisture when there is heat around. So to keep your spices from becoming hard and to last longer, store them away from heat and also away from light. So if you have a dark colored container, that's a good idea. Also, you can just put them away in a cabinet where the door will be closed and they will be stored away for later. Make sure you label your containers so you know what you're working with. You can also do the sniff test if you don't know exactly what you put in that seasoning blend. That's curry. So you can always do that. Also, if you have an additional ingredient that you need to add to the seasoning that is not going to be stored in your container, you can write that on the label. So, for example, if you wanted to make a combo of the ginger and the garlic for your teriyaki, But you know that you have to add soy sauce to it to make it teriyaki. You could say ginger garlic, and then you can say add 1/4 cup of soy sauce for 1 tablespoon of this seasoning. It's just an easy little rule that you set up for yourself, and you don't have to think about it whenever you get ready to cook. That's my favorite, is like not having to think about it. Like, I'm going to make some chili. I got the seasoning already made. I'm going to throw some in there, add some more if I think it needs more flavor, and then continue on your day. Okay. One more thing I want to share with you is that there are places where you can buy your spices cheaper, and also in bigger quantities if you want to make some of these seasonings in bulk. So one of my favorite places is DeKalb Farmers Market over in Decatur. You can get your spices. They receive them in bulk. So the bulk spices are put into smaller containers, but they're a lot cheaper. This is a lot more than you would get from a container at a grocery store, and it's going to be a lot cheaper. So if that's something you're interested in, that's a great place to look, is that particular store. But also take a look at the international section of your grocery store. You can find the seasonings just like the ones we have in inventory in these little packets, and they're going to be cheaper when they're in this little plastic packaging than if they're in a container like this. So maybe plastic is not your jam and that's not your first choice, but if your budget is your first choice, this is a great option, especially since these are resealable. I was really excited about that resealable part. Yeah, I think that's it. Making your own spices is a great way to control how much salt you're getting in your food. So none of these blends have salt added to them. You can add the salt to taste after the fact. A rule of thumb that I like to follow for salt is 1/2 teaspoon per 4 servings. So if you're serving 4 people, if your chili is going to be for 4 people, yes, I got my 1/2 teaspoon right. I fumbled on that. You can do 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and that's going to keep you under your daily recommended limit. So what's the daily recommended limit? Not a lot. So the recommended limit is no more than 1 teaspoon per day. It's actually a little bit less than a teaspoon, but that is your recommended limit, especially if you have high blood pressure. You want to look at less than this. So pay attention to your nutrition labels on any of your prepared foods, like canned soup, or if you're using chicken broth or a chicken bouillon cube to add flavor to your food. That is basically chicken flavored salt. So keep that in mind. Pay attention to that. You can use less of it, and you can add more herbs and spices to add flavor besides the salt. One more thing. So one thing that I love to recommend about adding flavor to your food is to use an acid. So an acid can be a citrus fruit like orange or lemon or lime, or it could just be vinegar, a basic vinegar that you might have in your pantry. But that's a great way to, you kind of trick your tongue a little bit because you give it this extra flavor profile that may not have been expected, and it helps to balance out flavors. So keep that in mind. Keep your lemon juice on hand, or just a little bit of vinegar to balance out some flavor. So you can pay a little bit more attention to the salt that you're eating, because salt's in everything. I mentioned Lowry's earlier. That is a salt. That is a seasoned salt, and it has a lot of salt per the small amount that's listed as a serving size. So keep your eye on your serving sizes on your nutrition label, and just think about how much of that product you might actually be using. Okay, my friends. I would love for you to drop some of your favorite seasoning blends into the chat. And let us know if there are some that we should add to our list. So I hope you will make some garlic herb seasoning or taco chili, or what else did I do? Curry, some teriyaki sauce, or this all-purpose that you can use on anything. And let us know what you think. You can find the recipes and all of these seasonings written down at the link on the bottom of the screen, or you can find it at bit.ly/ACFB Nutrition Resources. And we will see you in a couple of weeks for the next episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.